most miracle. This is the prerogative of God, to give life and death, to give life and take life. This is his privilege. This is his prerogative. Life and death are in the hands of God, we believe. So if Jesus gave life to the dead, then he's God. I said, in the Bible, there are other personalities who have performed greater miracles than that of Jesus, according to our human intellect. You see, if a man, has a heart attack and he collapses, falls flat, and the doctor, say in the audience, comes along and examines him, and he certifies that the man is dead. He's dead. Best thing is now, call the ambulance, take him away to the mortuary, and whatever is supposed to be done. But somebody else from the audience come along and say, no, the man is not dead. And he says, Kum biiznillah, wake up in the name of God. And the guy wakes up. He stands up. He was certified dead. But then we said, look, the doctor must have made a mistake, because while we are watching that dead person, at times we feel that maybe he's still breathing. This is human nature. So look, sometimes I have been feeling pulse of a deceased person. Believe me, I've been feeling the pulse. The man is supposed to be dead, and I'm feeling the pulse, and I still feel the pulse. I'm feeling the pulse. I said, no man, I think he's still alive. I'm feeling my own pulse. Actually, this is my pulse. As the heartbeat is touching here, I'm feeling that, and I'm feeling that there is some movement is so sensitive, I'm so tensed, and I'm feeling my own pulse, but I'm thinking the other person's pulse is beating. You try it sometimes. When you meet such occasion, you try that and you see. You think the person is alive, you watch the person, say, I think any minute he might come to. And the person comes along, so maybe he was feigning, he was acting. When the other man comes along, his friend, maybe they had worked it out, said, come, get up! And the guy gets up. So we said, no, he was acting, maybe. But this table, inanimate, dead as a dodo. You agree? If somebody can put life into this dead wood, he would be greater than the one who wakes up the dead person. Am I right? Dead wood, a piece of stick, if you can put life into it. Dead wood, dead stick, like the rod of Moses. Moses, his rod, God Almighty commands him, throw it, and he throws it becomes a serpent and eats up the little snakes of the Egyptians. I'm asking, which is greater miracle? Reviving the dead or putting life into a stick, dead stick? Which is? Come on, you tell me according to your common sense. Then we read in the Bible about Elisha, his rotten bones. The man was buried and his bones had rotted in the grave. Elisha, the prophet. And the Jews were going to bury somebody. And the enemies, they saw the group coming, and so in the fear and terror, they pushed this corpse into the grave. They didn't bury him, they pushed it in to run away for dear life. And the rotten bones of Elisha, touching this corpse, brought the corpse back to life, says the Holy Bible. Rotten bones. The rotten bones didn't have to say, Kum biiznillah, wake up in the name of Allah. No. The rotten bones had that power, that electrifying force to bring dead back to life. So who is greater, Jesus or Elisha? His rotten bones had that power. No, stand to reason. Why don't you stand to reason? But let us examine this miracle of Lazarus. Did Jesus give life back to Lazarus? Did he? Is that what he says? Is that what the scriptures say? No. You see, Jesus was not there when Lazarus died. He wasn't there. After 3 days, he returns to the village and meets the sister of Lazarus, I think Martha and Mary. And the sister tells Jesus, he says, Master, had you been here with us, my brother would not have died. In other words, by some miraculous power, you could have revived him, or you could have saved him from death. Because they were very dear friends. Lazarus was a dear friend of Jesus. My brother might not have died if you were here. So Jesus, in answer to that, he says, even now, if you have faith, ye shall see the glory of God. Even now, if you have faith, you will see the glory of God. Not my glory, glory of God. So saying, he says, lead me to where Lazarus is buried. So they start leading him, Jesus. And while he is going to the sepulchre, this is human nature. Jesus starts to moan. He's groaning in the spirit. The Bible says that he groaned in the spirit. What is groaned in the spirit? What is groaning? Actually, he's pouring out a prayer to God. He says, oh my Lord, inaudible. They hear the sound, but they can't decipher what he's actually saying. So he's crying to God. So, oh my Lord, my dear friend Lazarus, oh my Lord, listen to my prayer. Oh my Lord, bring him back to life. But he's not speaking so clearly. He's crying to God for help. He's praying to God, but the people around him are not hearing the words. They only hear, oh my friend. He's talking like that, groaning. That's groaning. And the shortest sentence in the Bible, it says, and Jesus wept. 2 words. Jesus wept. 2 words. That's the shortest sentence. Sometimes you might have some competition and you might win a prize if you remember that. The shortest sentence in the Bible is Jesus wept. Wept. He cried for his friend Lazarus. And he gets the assurance. He gets the assurance from the Lord of life and death, God Almighty. He says, go ahead and ask what you want, you get it. What you want, you get it. Didn't Jesus say? He says, whosoever asketh, receiveth. Whatever you ask, if you are a man of God, you receive. He says, which man is there of you? Which man is there of you that if his son asks for fish, you give him a snake? Which man is there of you that if he asks for bread, you give him a stone? He says, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. This is his message. He himself is crying to God that he should be helped, that his friend Lazarus should come back from the dead. He's crying bitterly and he gets the assurance. He gets the assurance from God, but not on our human level. You see, God Almighty speaks to his messengers on a higher spiritual level, what we call revelation. They are like the electromagnetic waves of the spiritual world. This messenger of God, this man of God, he hears it. But we who are his brothers around him, we don't. We are too coarse. We are too coarse to apprehend the messages. So he hears the message and he responds. He looks up towards heaven. He looks up towards heaven and he says, oh my Father, I know that thou hast heard me, and I know that thou hearest me always. I know that you have heard me. Heard me means you hearkened to my prayer, you accepted my prayer, not that God is deaf at any time. When it said that God heard, means God accepted. I know that thou hast heard me, and I know that thou hearest me always. Always, whatever he's asking, he's getting. That's what he's confessing. And I know that thou hearest me always, but because of the people that stood by, these superstitious, credulous people, because of them, I said it, in other words, speaking loudly, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. Otherwise, these superstitious, credulous people, they say, I gave life back to the dead, and they must start worshipping me. Therefore, I'm putting up an act. Oh, my Father, I know that thou hast heard me. Now, this is audible. They're hearing, listening. The groaning, the prayer from his heart, nobody heard what he said. But the response when he gets from God, and now he's articulating the answer to his prayers, he says, I know that thou hast heard me, and I know that thou hearest me always. Everything that I do, it is you who are doing the works, not me. You did the work. And Peter testifies in the book of Acts. He says, ye men of Israel, hear these words. O Jews, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth, a man approved of God among you by miracles and wonders and signs, which God did by him, which you yourself also know. He didn't do it. God was working through him. He only switched on the switch. He put on the switch. The power came from God, from the power station. It was not his. He is only an instrument putting on the switch, putting down the switch. So he goes up to the tomb, the sepulchre, and he shouts, Lazarus, Lazarus, come out. and Lazarus came out. I'm asking, who did the works? Who performed the miracle? He says, God. You say Jesus. I said, what's wrong with you? He's telling you it is God who's doing the works. He's listening to me now and he's listening to me always. Everything that I do is him who's working. Peter says it is God working through him. Jesus didn't do it. He's only a man approved of God among you by these miracles and wonders and signs. He is not God. He is a man. So the big question remains. Where does Jesus say, I'm God? Where does he say, worship me? Or where does he say, I and the Father are one and the same thing? Where? On the cross. According to the Christian records, Jesus Christ, he cries out. Can we wait for this? Excuse me, please. You gentlemen, look, please. Now, will you just sit down for a while? Let us finish the talk and then you can give out the papers. Please. Are you listening? Please, sit down. Sit down. Yes. There's time enough to pass out the papers. Supposed to be on the cross. Jesus Christ cries out. Before he gave up the ghost, they say. In other words, before his spirit came out. He says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Which means, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Who is he crying to? Himself? Who is Eli? El in Hebrew means God. Elah in Hebrew means God. Elohim is a plural of respect in Hebrew for God. Eli means my God. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? I'm asking, is he crying to himself? Tell me, is he putting up an act like the other actors do in the films? Masterful actors, we also cry. We know the guy's acting, but the way he acts so realistically that even we shed tears, don't we? So, is he putting up an act? He is God himself. He is his own father and he's crying to somebody else, Eli, Eli. Does that make sense to you? Putting up an act? Are you going to tell me he's putting up an act? When is he God? What is crying? He said, no, his human self is crying. So when was he God? At what stage was he God and when was he man? Because the Christian, catechisms, they say that he's a perfect man and a perfect God. Like saying perfect water and perfect oil. There's no such thing. Oil and water, if you blend, you create an emulsion which is neither oil nor water. You can't use it as oil and you can't use it as water. Jesus is perfect man and perfect God, says the Christian. I says, now, his perfection of divinity, where does he portray? Because this crying out is of the soul. It's not the body of man that cries. It's the soul, the heart, the mind, the spirit is crying. Physically, it's not the body. The body only conveys the pain, but it is who? You, the real you, your soul, your ruh, your spirit, that is crying. And the spirit of Jesus, if this is true, he's crying to God for help. He's complaining to God that God has let him down. He's God himself and he's crying to somebody else. Does it make sense? Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. And the one is crying to, who he is? He's Allah. He is Allah. He's crying to Allah. They say, no. I said, look, amazing thing. Amazing thing happens. People get brainwashed to such an extent that they look at a sentence. They look at it. That means while they're looking, the message is going to the head, into the brain. They read it, articulate it, and the sound goes into the ears, again to the brains. They see it, they read it, they hear it, and they don't catch it.